Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports, live from our Pontchartrain production studios. Hope you're having a great day as we get started talking a lot of sports today. Of course, we'll talk a lot about the Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans, all on tap today. To break it down for us, one of the best we have here in the city. Glad to have him back on the show. Fletcher Mackel of Channel 6 Sports joins us on the show. Fletch, welcome to the show. Always good to have you. A weekly participant on the radio show. Because of the time change now at 1 o'clock with our live broadcast, we get to bring on folks like Fletcher Mackel. Good to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me. I haven't been to the new studio yet, so it's a beautiful setup. I like the socially distant here and the temperature checks and everything on the way in. But it's great to be here and excited to talk for the next hour.
Yep, no doubt. Now let's start off. Tell us a little bit about what's going on over at Channel 6. Plus, again, your blog, everything that's happening over there.
Yeah, obviously a lot of sports right now. Even in the COVID world, Saints, LSU, Tulane, good or bad. Good for the Saints, bad for LSU, good for Tulane. Pelicans starting up. So a lot going on with my colleagues, Sharif Ishak and now Caroline Gonzalez. So on basically every single day at 4, 5, 6, and 10. And then Jim Mora and Lance Mora are with us for our Saints productions this year. They are both from their homes. They both live in California now. Jim in Palm Desert, Lance in San Diego. I wish they could have been in with us this year, but out of an abundance of safety and caution, they are doing everything via Zoom and remotely, and they've been great. Lance has been fantastic in his first year with us, replacing Roman Harper, who went to ESPN. So hopefully when the playoffs start, we'll see a lot more of Jim and Lance, but they are with us every week. Lance will actually be on for the rest of this week, breaking down the Saints-Eagles game as we get closer to kickoff.
Any chance that we'll see some games flex at Channel 6 with the rest of the season?
I don't think so. The best chance was probably the game on the 20th, but CBS protected it. So NBC actually did flex out the game that night, which was Cowboys-Niners, the first time the Cowboys had ever been flexed off of Sunday night football, and they put in Cleveland and the Giants because Cleveland is doing so well this year, and the Giants have now won 4 straight and are back in the playoffs. That was the only game I could have seen because the game on Christmas Day is protected because it's already locked into Fox, and then I can't really see any meaningful reason to put Saints at Carolina in the final week. Now, maybe when the playoffs happen, we could have a game on NBC, but I don't think any of the games, that game didn't get flexed. So I think the Saints are where they are for their final few regular season games.
I really enjoyed the broadcast, pregame and postgame you guys do at Channel 6. It's really great because you guys are bringing the interviews right to you. You can sit right there on your couch or your easy chair and check it out right there.
Yeah, I agree. And look, let me say this. Jim Mora he may be upset at me when I say this, 85 years old now.
Right.
I think he looks great. He's still sharp as a tack.
Sharp.
But Zoom, we were curious as how that is going to work.
Right.
And he actually loves it now. I think he gets a big kick out of the fact that he can watch in his den, he can go into his library, and he is live via Zoom. He still loves coming back to New Orleans and has a great affinity for New Orleans and calls New Orleans his second home. So I know he wishes he were here, but is somebody who doesn't do a lot of Zoom.
Right.
I think he gets a kick out of the fact that he's doing it via Zoom. We do have to tell him, you're on all the time.
Right.
Just realize that you are on.
Right.
When we say go, it's live for 90 minutes. And there's no, oh, am I on?
Right.
Yes, you're on. Just
Right.
pretend you're on for 90 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah.
No doubt. Well, we're on right now, so let's jump to it. We'll start with the Saints. Again, winners over Atlanta, 21-16. They've won 9 in a row, won 10 games on the season. They've clinched their playoff spot. They win this week, and they can clinch the NFC South. They are leading the NFC right now as the number 1 seed. And let's start with Taysom Hill, because that's been the biggest news for the Saints over the last few weeks. 3-0 as a starter. A little bit shaky in his first half of the first Atlanta game, then came on to play very, very well in the second half. The Denver game, again, a very, very conservative approach by Sean Payton, even though, again, I'll say the first 2 series he looked a little bit shaky as far as that went. But then you come out and you come the second Atlanta game, spectacular. At one point, 10 for 10 on third downs. Again, he looked the part of a starting quarterback, was able to go through his progressions. I thought he got the ball out quickly. He was decisive. I mean, I'm one that, again, still has to be proven that he could be an NFL starter. But again, based on what you've seen against against Atlanta twice, he surely looks like, again, he has the opportunity to do that. Talk a bit about it. You've been behind Taysom really since Peyton kind of introduced the fact that maybe he's going to be the heir apparent, that he has the ability to be able to play in the NFL. Take it from there.
Yeah, obviously when he got here, we didn't know much about him. In 2017, he started playing on special teams. And in 2018 is really when Sean Payton said, Drew Brees' heir apparent, we think, is in the building, and he made the Steve Young comparisons because of the mobility that Taysom Hill has. I just felt like listening to Sean Payton. Look, we all listen to a lot of coach talk. We've all been to a lot of press conferences. Sometimes we know that it's just coach talk, and it's just superficial. That one of the things Sean Payton says, and I think it's a good characteristic, whenever you ask about a new player or an individual player, the first thing he says is, well, he's smart. Well, look, every player isn't the smartest player in the world, but I think that is something that I dismiss almost, not to say that all his players aren't smart, but he says it about every player. So I know, does he really mean it? I don't know. I think that, yes, you're looking for players with high football IQs, but since he says it about every player they draft or every player they sign, you start to wonder, does he really mean it? Listening to Sean Payton, the conviction in his voice when he talks about Taysom Hill, going all the way back to 2018, just triggered something in me. We all have kind of a common sense gauge, or I hate to use a term, like to gauge people's level of sincerity, if you will. And I just felt like he was being sincere, that he wasn't trying to dupe the media or oversell Taysom. There was no real reason to do that. And I talked with somebody that I trust and know, and I'm not going to say his name, former NFL player, very well respected. And he told me about a year ago, he had hung out with Sean Payton, and he goes, Sean is all in on this. This isn't a fake. He goes that I wasn't sure, and I hadn't seen Sean in a while, and we had a great conversation. And he's serious about this, that this isn't a joke, that he's not just saying this to make teams prepare for him or to make teams trade a higher draft pick if they're interested in him. There was no duping anybody. He goes, I'm telling you right now, he's all in it. Once I heard that, I go, look, this is somebody that I know Peyton respects. This is an NFL person that he connects with, and this person's telling me, believe this. So that's when, and I will say this too. Taysom Hill was at our station last year as a WDSU Saints analyst, so I had a chance to get to know him, and I do like him, and I do want to see him succeed. So I do have a personal bias there in the fact that I got to know him a little bit because he was such an amazing person. He would come to the station, he would greet everybody. Everybody was engaged with him. He was engaged with everybody. Really, just a quality human being. So I wanted to see him succeed because he's talked about this. And I do think what we don't see behind the scenes is what you alluded to, how he's progressing, Reed. reading defenses,
Yes.
how he is developing with those receivers. Those are things that the media doesn't get to see during the season.
True.
So we see glimpses in training camp, in preseason, but we don't get to see during the season work. So he has seen Taysom 17, 18, 19 in this year develop. And I think the development that they have seen from Taysom Hill has checked every metric that they had. Look, when he got here, he was raw. There was a lot of ability, but I think Sean Payton has molded it, and Drew Brees has molded it, and Pete Carmichael and Joe Lombardi. They have molded Taysom Hill, and he has learned and been coached and adaptable to what they want. And that's why they were planning on going with him. They have gone with him. And again, do I think Taysom Hill is going to be the next Drew Brees? I don't know. But I think he's answered a lot of questions for the naysayers that thought this was a joke.
Yeah, and I'm one.
Yeah.
Okay. You can point to the fumbles, okay,
Sure.
which were an issue in the fourth quarter against Atlanta. You can say, okay, well, he's played well against Atlanta twice. Let's see how he does against other teams. And we're going to see that against Philly this week, especially again with that front four, the way they put pressure on the passer. To your point about Peyton being invested in this and all in. Never seen Peyton fall on the sword for anybody, okay? Not even Drew Brees. When you look at Denver 2 weeks ago and talking about the conservative play call, this was on me, okay? Even though, again, look, my eyes saw the first two series, Vic Fangio maybe trying to take away the strengths of Taysom and Taysom holding the ball a bit. Some can say, look, Peyton was in his ear about being conservative, and maybe it was that was the situation. This week, the fumble in the fourth quarter, where Peyton comes out and says, well, that's on me on the play call, okay, that I shouldn't have put him in that position. You don't hear that. He's invested here. But with that said, you would have to be blind not to be able to see that he has progressed since he first got behind center to now. He feels more comfortable behind center, and he's doing what quarterbacks do. Good quarterbacks. Doesn't have tunnel vision. He's going through his progressions. He's got the arm. We know he has the arm. He has the ability, and he seems to have the system down. And he's not Drew Brees, but again, he looks like he can function within this offense.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I'll say this. I do think Peyton has gone out of his way to give him some cover, which I think is an important thing for a young quarterback that the microscope has been on, for better or for worse.
Right.
This player has been scrutinized nationally. There is an interest in him. I think Peyton is very self-aware and understands that, and people were going to criticize the Denver game, and I do think that the game plan changed, that they knew. Peyton had a great line, I thought, when he said, we knew 7 points in that game was the equivalent of 21 in any other game. So Denver was playing without a quarterback. They were playing a practice squad wide receiver. So I think that he felt the responsibility, because people were going to look at the stats and go, whoa, Taysom Hill, what is that? That's awful. But it's really not, because all he asked him to do is just manage the game. Don't make mistakes.
True.
And that's one of those things that I think I appreciate him falling on the sword for that, not letting people wonder, did he want to do more? Did Taysom not do enough? Could Taysom have been better? So I do think that that's one of those things of Peyton being self-aware, understanding sometimes how to handle things in the media. Is he always great with the media? No, I sometimes wish he was more forthcoming about things. But I certainly think that when he knows he can control a narrative, or he can help with the narrative to help people see what needs to be seen, he does a good job with that. But look, getting back to Taysom Hill, we know he can make plays with his feet. I have been more impressed in the fact that I thought, do they change the offense? Because you'll remember, a few years ago when Lamar Jackson took over for Joe Flacco, he had struggles at times because he was still running the offense that Flacco and the Ravens ran. They brought in Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator who was with San Francisco, and Colin Kaepernick was there. They changed the offense for Lamar Jackson. He wins an MVP award. It fits him more. I was curious to see if Peyton would change the playbook, the offense, to cater more to what Taysom does. Now, did they do more play action? Did they do more rollout? Sure. But the one thing that impressed me maybe more than anything else, the third down conversions, the progressions, is the fact that they didn't drastically change it. And Taysom is still functioning in the offense, a different, maybe a slightly different style, but for all practical purposes, not a 180 from what they were doing with Drew Brees.
More in the shotgun than under center. But that comes with the territory when you talk about Taysom as opposed to Brees. Here's the big question about Taysom Hill, though. he will be 31 years old next
Yeah.
year. Okay, I mean, a guy that was often injured at BYU, he has not been injured in the NFL. Do you make the commitment to a guy that's 31 that maybe has 3 or 4 more years to play at a high level? Okay, you say 31, 35, for a quarterback, till maybe you start to see the bottom start to drop on most QBs. I mean, again, you could say that Brady and Breeze are the exception here, but that's the question here. Is he a bridge guy here, or are they willing to be all in? If they're all in, how long can you have Taysom Hill as your starter?
Yeah.
If Breeze walked this year, and I think, again, for the first time, I'm kind of in that camp where this is the last year for Drew Brees.
Yeah, no, I've been all along. Look, I love Drew Brees. I don't think people understand what he's meant to this organization, to this city. He will go down as the greatest athlete in our city's history, and it's not even close. I mean, it's not even close. I do think this is it for him. I do think he didn't take a month to decide about retirement last year, and people told me in that organization that it was 50-50. I mean, there were people that were close to Brees that said if they would have gotten to the Super Bowl with the Nolan no-call year, win or lose, that was probably going to be it for him. So I do think Drew Brees is retiring after this season. Look, I hope he plays forever.
Sure.
But I think that just realistically looking at it, and from a journalistic point of talking to people that I've spoken with, I think this is it for Drew Brees. I don't think the age thing on Taysom Hill, I think that is more of a creation that doesn't need to be created. What you pointed out concerns me more. The injury history and the way he plays, because the way he plays lends himself to potentially being injured. That part of his game is making plays with his feet outside the pocket, and we love when the 230-pound quarterback puts his shoulder into a DB and trucks him.
Right.
But when he puts his shoulder into a Demario Davis-type linebacker, that's going to be a different situation over a 16-game season.
Absolutely.
I think the age thing, and again, people have their own opinions. I think it's foolishness. I think it's stupid that at 31 we're talking about a guy being too old. If he was 39, I may be saying, well, at 40 you've seen, Jeter goes south at 40, Peyton goes south at 40, Kobe goes south at 40. Breeze isn't the same player at 40 that he was at 30.
True.
But at 30, that is not, or 31 years old. Are they giving Taysom Hill a 7-year contract? No. I doubt he even gets a long-term deal after this year. I think he'll be the starting quarterback if Brees retires, but do they extend him deep after that? I just don't know, and I don't think so. But people talk about he's 30, or he's 30, he'll be 31 next year. Well, who cares? That's young. That's the prime of his career. And if you get Taysom Hill in the prime of his career, leading this defense, in this offense, in this team, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that if you have 3 or 4 good years and he doesn't have some 10-year career. What concerns me more, though, is 16 games, the physicality that he plays with and that he shows, and the fact that because of that physicality, he had injuries in college. He has stayed injury-free here, but he hasn't taken every snap at quarterback. Look, injuries caught up with Cam Newton.
Right.
Injuries have dinged up Lamar Jackson a little bit. A lot of running quarterbacks because the NFL is so physical and so fast.
Right.
But if Taysom Hill can give this organization after this year from 31 to 35 in 4 great years, I'm good with that.
Let's talk about Drew Brees. As of yesterday, the first practice, he was still on IR. We don't know if they're taking him off IR. Even if they take him off IR, they got 21 days in which to put him on the active roster. What do you anticipate happening this week? Look, I think all of us agree that this is Taysom Hill's game against Philadelphia. What do you think happens from this point forward with Brees? Will we see him next week against Kansas City, or will they hold him out to Minnesota?
I think we see him against Kansas City. There's no chance we see him this week. I think that's way too soon. I know that there were some national reports. He didn't practice yesterday, according to Ian Rappaport with the NFL Network. They said they may work him out a little bit today and tomorrow just to see how he feels. But you're talking about an injury that if he sustains another hard hit there, that's it. It could be season over, career over for him if he retires after this season. So I do think they're going to be extra careful, especially if they keep winning with Taysom Hill. So obviously Taysom Hill is going to play quarterback against Philadelphia on Sunday. I still think Brees comes back. Remember last year with the thumb injury, everybody said Teddy will get him through Arizona, then they have a bye. Brees will be back. That'll be 6 games plus the bye week, and he'll be fine. Right. It was 5 games. Brees came back against the Cardinals, was fantastic against the Cardinals, then had the bye, and he was fine the rest of the season.
Yes.
In December, he was the player of the month, 15 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think Drew wants to come back. I think this game is one of those tentpole games of a potential Super Bowl matchup. Mahomes in the next generation versus Breeze, the old guard, the future Hall of Famer. Saints and Chiefs could be in the Super Bowl. I think he wants to come back for that game. I think that's the game he comes back for. But if they win this game, I would not be surprised if they feel like you could jeopardize these games to hold them out to the Christmas game, and that still gives them the Christmas game, the game in Carolina, to get some snaps and to get back, maybe a bye, and then the playoffs. I'm leaning more towards the Kansas City game, but I would not be surprised if it was Christmas Day against Minnesota.
Let's talk a little bit about the defense, because that's been the biggest change that we've seen again since the beginning of the season, where again they didn't live up to expectations to now they're in some cases they're exceeding expectations. Quan Alexander's been a great addition to this team. It really gives them a lot of speed on the second level between Gardner Johnson, himself, and Demario Davis. Now they also, again, now with the ability of the defensive line to put the type of pressure they're putting on the quarterback, it really helps the back end. And look, for the most part, they've been pretty interchangeable on the back end, especially, again, since the hiccups early. You saw last week Patrick Robinson start for Janoris Jenkins. He gets hurt. P.J. Williams slides right in. And they haven't missed a beat for the most part. Look, there were some things last week against the Atlanta receivers maybe you didn't like to see. The penalties kind of eked back into this again, which is something that was an Achilles heel early. But for the most part, they've really kept that out of the games. Your thoughts right now on the defense, and then we'll talk about where the offense is.
Yeah, look, I think Dennis Allen is a really good defensive coordinator. I think they have a ton of talent on that side of the ball, and I think they're playing very well. I mean, I think Demario Davis, next to Drew Brees, is the greatest free agent addition probably in franchise history. I mean, no doubt what he's meant to that defense, because Jonathan Vilma came in a trade. Other guys were drafted by the organization. When you're talking about free agents, especially of the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era, you'd be hard-pressed to find one more meaningful. Drew Brees is obviously the most meaningful, but I think Demario Davis is second. I do think Jeff Duncan, who I know you have on your show here with The Athletic, pointed something out to me, and I think it's helped the defense out. If you've noticed at the beginning of the season, they line up in a hybrid sub package. I mean, I think maybe 5 plays this season, we've seen a traditional 4-3. They mostly line up with 3 safeties with Gardner Johnson, Malcolm Jenkins, and Marcus Williams. Malcolm, at the beginning of the season, one of those two was playing more as like a hybrid linebacker in a strong safety role, be it Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or Malcolm Jenkins. The fact that they've moved Malcolm a little deeper, I think, has helped his comfort level. I think it's helped Marcus Williams a lot. I think it's helped the secondary a lot. But I just think the communication issues that were plaguing them, like in Green Bay, when they got destroyed on those play-action passes, I think that's what good teams do. I know that there are alarmists, and everybody in the world today is polarizing because of social media. It has to be an extreme. You're either awful or you're great. Well, look, the Saints weren't great. They weren't awful, but they weren't great. But they figured it out. That's good coaching. That's good players. That's communication. That's smarts. That's having confidence in what we do and how we do it to stay the course. And I think it's paid dividends for them, because maybe a younger team or a less experienced team panics if they struggle like that defensively. Oh no, what are we doing and how are we doing it? But you never heard that with those guys. You just felt like we're going to figure it out. Malcolm Jenkins even said, we're not going to not be aggressive. The penalties are overly aggressive, but we're not going to not be aggressive. They really have just kind of figured out what they do, how they do it, and they have put themselves in a position to succeed. So look, I think the defense is, the last few years has been a true strength of this team, and that's what's made them from a playoff team to a true Super Bowl contender. That's why they've been a Super Bowl contender the last 3 years.
Well, that was the puzzling thing about this early in the season. This was the same system, basically the same players. And again, they didn't look good early. Now, they've transformed that, and that's one of the reasons why you're seeing this team now on this win streak. On the offensive side of the ball, the commitment to running the football, I think, is the biggest change we've seen. Again, look, yes, Brees is not under center. You got Taysom Hill as a running quarterback. But again, whether it's been Latavius Murray a couple weeks ago, it was both a combination of Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara this past week. There is more of a commitment to running the football. Look, I think when Brees is in there, you got to run the football. But with Taysom, again, you got look, he's taking away carries from other backs with his ability to be able to run the football, the quarterback power, etc. But running the football with this offensive line, allowing them to be physical, I think plays right into, again, which has made them successful thus far.
Yeah, I mean, look, the last few years they've been more balanced than they ever have been. Going back to probably 2017 with Mark Ingram when he made the Pro Bowl, 2018, last year certainly. I do think they've had more balance. That I remember years where it was breeze, and more breeze, and they just completely abandoned the run. And there were games where you go, wow, you gave up on the run pretty soon. Whereas now, you're right, they've got a really strong physical offensive line. They've got backs in Kamara. People, I think it's so disingenuous when people say, oh, he's a change of direction, or oh, he's a scat back, and it's like, no. He runs between the tackles pretty hard and picks up a lot of tough yardage there. Latavius Murray, I think, has been a quiet pickup for this team. I loved Mark Ingram. I knew what he meant to that locker room. I was concerned when he left. Latavius Murray is not the same locker room figure that Mark Ingram was. But from a production and player standpoint, there really hasn't been much drop-off from Ingram to Latavius Murray. And so, and now with Taysom Hill, the fact that the dimension that he gives them to run the ball and be a power team. And I also think that with Taysom Hill, and even if it's Taysom Hill next year, that is going to be a huge part of what they do. The threat of being a power team is going to open up passing lanes.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, you've seen it already this year. Fakes to Kamara on play action or fakes to Kamara in some way, shape, or form open up tremendous passing lanes for the touchdown against the Falcons when Traquan Smith was so open. Everybody bit on Kamara, knowing that they can just ram it down our throat. And look, this leads to wide open guys sneaking free. So I certainly think that it's been in their best interest to do that, and I think it's something you'll continue to see.
Jalen Hurts will start for Philadelphia this week. They've got a great front four on the defensive side of the ball, leading the NFL in sacks, quarterback hurries. They've been able to do that with 4 down linemen. Talk a little, and of course, the offensive line for Philadelphia has been a revolving door because of injuries. Talk about this matchup.
Yeah, I think the Saints defense, talking about them, is where they really shine in this game. That I like Jalen Hurts, but I don't love Jalen Hurts. I wasn't one of these people who was all in on Jalen Hurts at Alabama. I sometimes think Alabama quarterbacks, not Tua, but some of these other guys like Mac Jones this year. I mean, I look at some of the receivers and think I could have thrown that pass. The separation there. I felt like Jalen Hurts was maybe more of a product of Saban, awesome offensive line, great skill players. And then even at Oklahoma, I thought he did more, but that playoff game last year, I like Jalen Hurts. I don't love him. I certainly don't love him against the Saints defense that's playing well. And I really don't love him with that offensive line that's been pretty suspect and has caused Carson Palmer to potentially lose his job this year. So I think the Saints defense has a real chance to feast this week and do a number on Jalen Hurts. The defense of Philadelphia does concern me a little bit. But that being said, Denver, while decimated by injuries, did have a solid front seven and 2 really good safeties, and they were able to manage the game and just ram it down their throats. I think you'll see, just my gut here, less passing from Taysom Hill like you did in the game. I don't know if he's going to throw it 37 times. He went 27 to 37 against Atlanta. I don't think you're going to see Denver where he throws it 16 times, but I would cut the difference. I think, you won't throw it 37, you won't throw it 16. I think somewhere around 25. And knowing that front can cause chaos to quarterbacks, especially in passing situations, I think the Saints go in there and try to overpower them, and you see a lot more of a stronger ground game this weekend.
Fletcher Mackel is our guest here on Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. A quick break here from our underwriters. We'll be right back. We'll talk LSU, we'll talk Tulane and Pelicans. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Don't go anywhere.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Our guest today is Fletcher Mackel of Channel 6 Sports. We'll start with Tulane. 6-5 to end the season, 35-21 winners over Memphis. Might be their best win of the season. I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but to me, it's what could have been. You should have beat Navy, okay? You had SMU and Tulsa on the ropes as a top 25 team and lost in overtime. So again, look, they've got a winning record, which is another step. They found a quarterback in Michael Pratt. The future looks bright there. But this is one of those ones where you got to go back to Jim Moore. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And look, I really think the last 2 seasons, I love Willie Fritz. And sometimes Tulane people on social media give me a hard time. Last year, Tulane started 5-1. And their only loss was at Auburn, and it was a good game.
Yes.
I mean, that was a good Auburn team, and they went in there and hung with them 3 quarters. In the score, I mean, they lost by double digits, but it was a lot closer than the score. I was somebody who was saying they could win this conference. They could end up in a New Year's 6 game. And then they went 1-5, and they were an utter and complete disaster. They didn't beat a team with a winning record. That was pretty ugly. This year, 6-5 is good. You're right. 3 straight non-losing seasons, because the regular season the last 2 years they went 6-6.
Right.
I know they won bowl games, but in the regular season 6-6, 6-6. This year 6-5. This year though is more infuriating because they were up 24 on Navy at home. Navy is a triple option team. Is somebody told me that's one of the worst blown leads in recent college football history.
Yes.
Because when you're up 24-0 against a triple option team, Sean Payton said, a team without a quarterback, 7 points is like 21. You're like up 50 on Navy. And they came back and won on a field goal at the horn. You go to Tulsa, you're up 14 in the 4th quarter, and they're down to their 3rd string quarterback. They come back, and on a Hail Mary, after a timeout, how they got behind those guys is just inconceivable to me, and then you lose in overtime. Absolute worst case scenario, they should be 8-3 right now. SMU at home, they were in overtime with.
Right.
The only reason I don't say that's a gimme game is because SMU was 17th in the country,
Right.
undefeated. SMU's probably the better team at this point, but the fact that you had them at home, you could be 9-2. You absolutely should be 8-3, yet you're 6-5. So to me, it is. I think Willie Fritz is a great coach. I think he's recruited well. I think he's hired great coaches. Will Hall just got the job at Southern Miss.
Right.
I don't think they're ever going to be, under Willie Fritz, Tulane of old, 2-10, 3-9,
True.
these horrible seasons. He is too good of a coach. He has built too good of a program. But now you have to have that breakthrough year. And at Tulane, those breakthrough years don't happen all the time. Last year was a great opportunity, 5-1. Why you couldn't have been 8-4 or 9-3, there's no reason for that. That's a failure. This year you're 6-5. Awesome. It's a failure that you're not 8-3. And people cannot like me saying that, but I think Willie Fritz, if you put some truth serum in him, would agree and say it is. We have failed because we did not get to 8-3.
Well, and look, again, you talked about Will Hall moving on to take the head coach of Southern Miss. Chip Long is coming in. He was a offensive analyst at Tennessee. He was a former offensive coordinator at Notre Dame, former finalist for the Burroughs Award in 2018. Supposedly he's coming in. It's going to be a wide open offense once again. Michael Pratt seems to be the real deal at quarterback. And look, this is a hotbed for skill position players in South Louisiana. You know, again, he could take the players that the SEC leaves behind and still be able to field a great team at Tulane with the type of skill position players they have in Louisiana.
Yeah, you're right. And so this year, though, I remember going out to those first few practices back in August when they started. And the concern was offense, because you lost two real McCleskey in Mooney, and you lost your senior quarterback who had SEC experience in McMillan, and you lost some running backs, and you still had things to figure out on the offensive line. It was the defense that was supposed to be the anchor this year and the offense that was going to struggle to figure it out. Once they made the change from Keon Howard and went with Michael Pratt, who I agree with you, looks like a potential NFL prospect in a couple of years, they've done a really nice job offensively. The defense is the unit that has let them down, that was supposed to be such a strength this year, that has blown leads and given up big gashes of points. So, yeah, again, it's just frustrating that if they could put it all together, they could have had really, really strong 2019, 2020. But because they couldn't, and inconsistencies, maybe next year's the year they break through. I'm not even sure they're going to a bowl game this year. I think they're going to get in, but they may not. And if they don't, it's not because of COVID. It's because they have nobody to blame but themselves.
Right. And that was going to be my next question about the bowl game. Because of the change in rules now, you don't have to have a winning season to be able to be invited to a bowl. But again, with the 6-5 record, with again other teams that may be more attractive from a television standpoint, it might be tough for Tulane to get in, even though I think they're deserving to get into a bowl game.
So last year I said something in Troy Down, and the AD tweeted at me, and people didn't like it. Last year, Tulane went to a bowl game. They didn't deserve to go to a bowl game. That was a joke. Look, I understand. When you and I were growing up, bowls were something special. It was a reward. Bowls are now participation trophies. Look, I work in television. I get it. I watch random bowl games with these random teams playing each other in Idaho or in baseball stadiums. It's great. We love live sports. There are cable networks now that need the content. There are a ton of bowl games now. Bowl games aren't special anymore. Bowl games are almost like participation trophies. They're special to a degree, I'll say that. Last year, Tulane did not deserve to go to a bowl game, finishing 1-5, not being a team with a winning record. Tulane, in my opinion, this year is more deserving than a boatload of teams to go to a bowl game. They're 6-5. They should be 8-3. They are a bowl team. They are a good program that needs to be in a bowl game. But because they're in 8th place in the American, and because bowl games got dropped this year, they may not get slotted into a bowl game, but they are deserving of a bowl game this year.
No, I would agree. And also interesting, there's a lot of rumors out there, other changes within the program, so at least it shows that Willie Fritz, if he does make changes on his coaching staff, is not willing to stand put. He's definitely wants to be able to try to be able to get this team to the next level. We'll see how that kind of plays out. Let's shift to LSU, because Fletcher, I'm telling you right now, I don't think we've ever seen this in our lifetime, where you got the greatest team in the history of college football, some say, all the accolades and awards they got last year, to again this meteoric drop that we've seen now, which looks like it's turned into a very, very toxic situation at LSU, with the defections, obviously to the draft, which we understood would happen with this team, because again they market themselves as NFL LSU, right? And players really stay 3 years with an opportunity to get to the NFL. But then you saw the defections before the season, with guys that wanted to opt out either for COVID reasons or to be able to set themselves up for the NFL season, get prepared. It's the in-season defections that are troubling. Guys that are going in the transfer portal because maybe they feel they don't fit with the defense, or again, they're not getting playing time. Or again, what has happened recently with Terrence Marshall last week, and then Eric Gilbert this week, where Marshall opts out after giving a speech to the team about finishing the season, and then ultimately opts out before the Alabama game. And then Eric Gilbert, who was the prize recruit this past year, again, they're opting out, but quitting on the team and saying homesick, his body hurts. I mean, a lot of myriad of excuses there. But again, now in a situation because of the new rules with COVID-19, that these players have the opportunity to be able to transfer without penalty. So we literally could see an Eric Gilbert next year with a Georgia or a South Carolina within their own conference. Something is amiss at LSU right now, and nobody seems to be able to put their finger on it. Your thoughts?
I would agree. Look, I said this in my report on Saturday night because I went to cover the LSU-Alabama game. I wasted several hours of my life, and I said this. The 2020 season has hit every single branch on its way down the ugly tree. Wow. There's just no other way to say it. That you realize 1 year ago this week, I was in Atlanta. LSU won the SEC championship 1 year ago this weekend. 1 year ago next week, I was in New York City covering the Heisman Trophy because Joe Burrow became the first Heisman Trophy winner since Billy Cannon. 1 year ago today, next month, on January 10th, I believe it was, LSU won the national championship, maybe the greatest college football season in the history of the sport, more than that Miami Hurricanes team from the early 2000s. I think the best college football season ever. So you're right. How do you go from that, this program that now has every blue chip recruit, every top quarterback prospect, to where you are now? And it's hard to put your finger on, like you said, because I understand we're all dealing with COVID. These are young people who are dealing with mental health and homesick issues. And yes, we definitely have to take all of this seriously. But there aren't other programs dealing with quite this level of disarray.
That's right.
That Boston College on Thursday morning announced we're not going to a bowl game, that our players have been on campus, we've been testing, we've kept them isolated, they haven't seen their families. It's just not that important to us this year. We're going to finish the season and we're going to regroup next year. But they haven't had a mass defection.
Right.
And not just a mass defection. You're talking Jamar Chase, top 10 pick. Terrace Marshall, possible first-round draft pick. Or Eric Gilbert was the high school player of the year last year. These are high-profile guys that are leaving your program. And some, like Marshall, who gave the speech, don't quit on the season, and then he quits on the season. So I don't know, because we are not privy to the inner workings.
True.
Like I said, the Saints had practice. We don't get to see behind the veil. You have to listen to the people that you trust. That's why I trusted Sean Payton on Taysom Hill. Right now, I feel like people are telling me propaganda, that it's fine, we're going to be okay, we're going to be back to national champions.
Right.
I think the institutional rot right now at that program is greater than people are letting on.
Right.
At a lot of different levels, because of a lot of different issues with the sexual assault issues that they're dealing with right now, the basketball issues that they're dealing with right now, football. So I don't know where they go from here, but I think Ed Orgeron could potentially become the next Gene Chizik. And what I mean by that is Gene Chizik won a national championship. Cam Newton was the number one pick. Cam Newton won the Heisman. Auburn won the national championship. 2 seasons later, he was out.
Right.
Look, no matter what, COVID, what you're dealing with, LSU should not be 3-7 or 4-6 this year. There's too much talent. There's too much money invested. There's too many resources.
Yes.
I'm not saying you have to win a national championship, because Bama, comparing everybody to Bama is unfair. They're in a class by themselves. LSU's not there. No program in the country is Bama. I'm sorry, LSU fans, you're just not. Bama is a once-in-a-generational juggernaut right now, and that's it. But you should never be 3-7.
No.
So next year, if they finish 3-7 or 4-6 this year, and Ed Orgeron follows that up with 6-6 next year, there's a chance they could just go in a much different direction and say, hey, all of this over the last 2 years since the championship is too much, and we are just going to go in a much different direction and pivot and make massive wholesale changes.
Right. And I could see that happening.
Without question.
I can see that happening. And another part of this is, and we talked about it on the radio show this week, players don't go to LSU to be able to get routed, and beat down like they've been beaten down this year. These are top players that again go to a program they feel is going to be a top 10 program that's going to spotlight them on national TV. It's one of the reasons that's what LSU sells.
Sure.
They're selling that. They're selling, we're going to have you on national TV. We're going to get you ready for the NFL. Look at the players we put in the NFL. So when you go through a season like this, where again you've got embarrassing loss after embarrassing loss after embarrassing loss, and whatever's going on within that locker room that seems to be the cancer there, it continues to be able to fester and fester to the point where, again, you're seeing your leaders in a lot of cases opting out. Leaders that are quitting on this team. Excuses aside, again, that's the thing that I can't wrap my mind around. Maybe I'm old school, but again, you're playing for the guy next to you at the end of the day. But these guys have decided that enough is enough. This is so toxic of a situation, I'm out.
Yeah, and look, I think that it's also impressionable young people.
Sure.
And there are many voices talking to them.
Exactly.
Sure. But here's the thing. The strongest voice is supposed to be Ed Orgeron. The strongest voice is supposed to be maybe some strong figures on his staff.
Yes.
So when those voices aren't getting through to them and their parents anymore, and the outsiders are now getting in, that starts to lend itself to what is going on here.
Yes.
That I can assure you, those outsiders at Bama don't outweigh Nick Saban. If Nick Saban sits down with those kids' parents and that kid, the outsider gets pushed to the back burner. At LSU this year, the outsiders have taken over Ed Ogeron and those strong voices.
Right.
And that is concerning because if you can't get it back on track, you've lost your program, and that's it.
14 players went to the NFL draft, or again, 20 total that went to NFL camps. Another 17 defections since then for this Tiger team. You mentioned it. And look, you can't ignore it. Whether you're an LSU fan or not, you cannot ignore, again, the investigations into football, the investigations into basketball right now, again, the alleged cover-up of the sexual assault, not just within the athletic program, but within the university. Again, LSU has already, self-imposed sanctions on themselves, 8 scholarships over 2 years. Yesterday, they said they're not going to a bowl game. That's laughable at 3 and 5, even though, again, they were going to get invited to a bowl. Okay, but yes, they wanted this misery to end, just like their fan base. How much does that play into this with a lot of these players? And then the next question is, this upcoming Wednesday is the early national signing period. LSU is supposed to have a top class. How many defections will we see as of Wednesday?
Yeah, again, that's going to be a great question. I know that they've got quarterbacks lined up in Garrett Nussmeier in Texas. They've got a lot of skill guys coming in. So we'll see. I mean, again, that would be a bombshell if some of these kids reopen their commitment or don't hold to their commitment and reopen their recruitment and say, I'm going to sign in February now, or decide that they want to flip to someplace else. So, again, we could have another bombshell announcement coming next week if the Tigers start losing some of these top guys because of what's going on there right now. That's a big deal. Like, I don't get into the recruiting the same way some people do. That's not really my area of speciality. Yeah. But look at Tom Herman. One of the reasons why he's on the hot seat is because some kids who were verbals to Texas have now defected from Texas, and they're worried about, we're Texas. How do we not get the best kids from Texas? And that's one of the things, on top of the record and the lack of success, the fact that you're now back to having some of your top players want to go to other places and leave the home state.
And you can't get the beat down like you got against Alabama. Again, the most points ever scored by an Alabama team at LSU in Tiger Stadium since the 20s. Yeah. The most ever scored against a defending champion since the 30s. I mean, these are embarrassing things for a lot of these young players that, again, they're in high school that have options to go to these other programs that are seeing this now. Will they stand firm with LSU? And then the other thing is, possible changes at the end of the season when it comes to coaching. A lot of people already think Bo Pelini's out the door. Some are saying there's rumors that Steve Ensminger may end up retiring and they may have to go in another direction. Who do you get as a coordinator if ultimately you're on a one-year hot seat?
Yeah. You're right. If they know Ed Ogeron is on the hot seat, what quality offensive or defensive coordinator is going to go there to potentially get fired after a year? So it's a difficult situation. I agree 110% with you, but I do think he's going to have to make wholesale changes on his staff just to show, if these voices aren't getting heard, we're bringing in new voices that maybe resonate more, and you know, maybe our program needed something like that, because Ogeron is not going anywhere. There's no, as of right now, let me preface that, unless there is a smoking gun that will link him to serious allegations being made, and I don't know if there is, he is not going to be fired this season. I agree. But I do think there's going to be a major reshuffling on his staff because of the way they've played defensively, what's happened within the program. I certainly think they're going to need to, but you're right. Who do you get knowing that this could be a 1 year and then you're out again?
So on a positive note, shifting to the Pelicans, because that is a positive story right now. Yeah. As bad as things have been for LSU, as good as things have been for the Saints, and of course the kind of ho-hum season for Tulane, at times good, at times bad. The Pelicans, at least right now, look like they're on an upward trajectory. I want to start, because it's the first time we've had you on the program. We talk a lot on the radio show. Let the audience know your thoughts on the hiring of Stan Van Gundy. Yeah,
I love the hiring of Stan Van Gundy. I think that he's somebody who is respected in the league. I think that he knows basketball. He's a basketball lifer, a coach's kid, and a junkie who just loves and is invigorated by coaching. So I also think he brings a level of structure and discipline. Look, I had a great relationship with Alvin Gentry, and I really liked Alvin Gentry as a human being. Alvin Gentry came in here, and I remember Dell Demps hired him because Monty Williams, as a young coach, was a little bit more rigid, a little bit more defensive oriented. Dell Demps, the former general manager, didn't like the way they play. He wanted to play faster. He felt like they were being too restrictive on guys. So they bring in Gentry, who's definitely a player's coach, who's definitely loose and free-flowing with his offense and how they operate. And they did have success in 2018. But I think that what they needed was more structure, especially now.
Yes.
And look, sometimes it's not necessarily the coach's fault. Things change. They brought in a new leader in David Griffin, who I like a lot. Trajan Langdon is general manager. Swing Cash is an executive. They drafted an 18-year-old. They have young players now in Brandon Ingram. So I do think they needed somebody more with structure and discipline and accountability. And I think Stan Van Gundy's a good hire. Look, I still want Becky Hammond to get a job in the NBA. I still think she's going to be a really good NBA head coach. There's a lot of great assistants. Steven Silas, who got the job with the Rockets, was here with his dad, and I had a chance to get to know him. Great guy. I think is going to be a really solid coach in the NBA like his dad. But I think at this time for this team, Stan Van Gundy was probably as good of a coaching hire as they could have made.
I thought he checked all the boxes.
I agree.
And going back to your point, you know, when you look at the NBA getting younger, and it is getting younger, the league is getting younger. Guys coming 1 year out of college, straight to the NBA. Eventually it's going to be, again, coming in as an 18-year-old, right? I think that you're looking at kids that go from high school where they've had a structure, where they've gone to college with 1 year with a structure, going into an NBA team where you, again, play loose and free and you don't have the structure. I don't think it works for a lot of these young NBA players. I think you can get away with it with a veteran NBA team, but I don't think you can get away with it with a young NBA team. This is a very young NBA team last year. They've added more veteran leadership this year, again, which is something that was necessary, but I think you needed structure, and I think David Griffin saw that. Plus, I think he attacked the things that he saw was lacking on this team. Look, he talked about a new identity. Toughness, grit, competitiveness, defensive intensity, offensive rebounding, not allowing all opposing guards to get into the paint, making their bones on the defensive side of the ball. These are all things. Look, Fletcher, how many times we sat on a Monday or a Tuesday and talked about those exact things this team was not doing? This is what this team needs to turn around to be a playoff team.
Without question. And you look at the teams that have advanced, and Stan Van Gundy brought it up the other day. Milwaukee is the number one defense in the league. And Van Gundy, I like the way he explains things. Somebody asked him about his defensive philosophy. He goes, look, Milwaukee has the number one defense in the league. Number one in the paint with Brook Lopez and Giannis protecting the paint. Don't give up shots at the rim. Don't let people get to the free throw line. They give up the most number of three-pointers in the league. But he goes, don't give up the high percentage easy shots. Make them shoot threes. There's going to be nights you run into the Warriors and Steph Curry when they shoot the lights out of the place. But you can't have teams shoot the lights out and then give them easy looks at the rim or fouls at the rim. So I do think that what he wants to do and how he wants to do it from a defensive standpoint is sound. I am curious to see offensively how they operate with Zion and Steven Adams together. Can Brandon Ingram continue to be this offensive force that he was that put him on the All-Star team? So, yeah, can Lonzo not be Lonzo of the bubble and Lonzo pre-bubble who was playing well, not Lonzo who was a disaster in the bubble? So I'm curious to see offensively how they operate. But defensively, I certainly think that, and I think what Van Gundy's looking at is teams like Toronto, teams like Milwaukee, even teams like Miami. They play great defense, and they will figure it out offensively, and they will create enough offense for themselves to win games, and I think that that's what they're going to do this year, which I like.
You don't advance in the playoffs in the NBA unless you play defense.
Sure.
And that's the bottom line. You could be the greatest offensive team in NBA history during the regular season, but in the playoffs you have to be able to play defense.
Well, look at the best series the Pelicans have probably had here since they came back. You know, since they relocated here in 2002. Probably 2008, I take it back, but they swept the Mavericks. The Mavericks weren't a great team that year. They were on the tail end of their championship run before they reloaded again in 2011. But the Portland Trailblazer series in 2018, they didn't win that because they played great offensively, and Davis they didn't have anybody who could defend him. But Drew Holiday, the two best players in Portland are Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And Drew Holiday locked both of those little guys up and tortured them defensively. They won a playoff series because they were locked in, engaged, and had a great matchup defensively.
Your thoughts on the new additions to this team? How do you like how Griff has built this team this season?
Well, at least there's a common theme. So what I like is this. I don't like duplication. I hate when NFL teams go hire Patriots assistants and they go, the Patriot way, that's us. Well, that's failed ridiculously, trying to duplicate something. I felt like Dell Demps failed, and Alvin Gentry and I referenced having a good relationship. We didn't when he got here in 2016 because I was really harsh on Dell Demps and Alvin Gentry because Dell Demps basically said, I'm trying to build Golden State South. I'm hiring the coach from Golden State. I want to open it up like Golden State. And guess what? Failed miserably because you didn't have Curry and Thompson and Draymond Green. Create your own identity. Sean Payton got here and didn't try to duplicate somebody else. He came in and put his own philosophies in place with his own players, headlined by Drew Brees. I like what David Griffin is trying to do here. They're not trying to duplicate anybody right now. They're going to do unique things with Zion in Adams. They're not duplicating. Maybe grit and grind Memphis is what they're duplicating, but that's not even that. So I like what he has done because he said his theme was grit, toughness, defensive integrity, and high IQ players. That's what he's got. He has built a team. Sometimes it always felt like they were compromising, bringing in players. Are they good people? Are they high IQ people? Do they fit what we do? No, but they have talent. Make it work. And that just didn't work. David Griffin is, I think, planting the seeds of we're building it with the right people, the right way, with the right theme, and we will not compromise that. That if that means sacrificing in the short term to build sustained success in the long term, will he have sustained success? I don't know, but I do like the fact that he's not compromising on what his vision is, even if it means a quick Band-Aid like Boogie Cousins or Buddy Hield. Or it always seemed Band-Aid on the gunshot wound, don't fix the gunshot wound, and he seems like he's done some serious surgery to fix what was ailing
Plus,
this franchise.
Plus, it set him up for the future with the future picks that will help this team continue to have sustained success. All right, the only question I have right now, I think they're going to be a better defensive team. I think they're going to be able to rebound. I think they're going to be physical in the paint. Where are they going to get the outside scoring from?
You know, that to me is the question. That shooting is still, I hope Nico Melli has a huge breakout season, but defensively, who do you play him with? How do you play him with Zion? Because you lose your rim protection then. You know, if you play Melli, you have to take Zion off the floor. Do you want to do that? Obviously, I think J.J. Redick is a great shooter, and they're going to rely on him in a big, big way. So hopefully he hasn't hit that, as we talked about, nearing 40 wall where players go south. Ingram is still a fine shooter, but he's not a knockdown shooter.
But he needs space, too, to operate.
Sure. So you're right. That's the one thing that I worry about this year is Lonzo, who became a much more efficient shooter last year. Is that going to carry over? So it could be there if JJ continues to be JJ, if Lonzo continues to develop as a shooter, if Ingram's shooting numbers continue to stay where they were last year. Maybe, but you're right. That's the one thing that I worry about. Is outside shooting and spacing the floor for some of these guys.
Unfair to ask you this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Is this a playoff team this year?
I think it's a fringe playoff team right now. I think there's no reason they can't beat Dallas. Luka's rookie year, Dallas finished 12. They finished 7 last year. There's no reason in my mind, if Zion's healthy, if Ingram is still an elite player, and there's no reason to believe he won't be, with the pieces you have around them, that they can't be 7 or they can't be 8. But the West is so deep and so loaded and so ridiculously good. They could finish 7, they could finish 11. I don't think they get any higher than 7, but I could certainly see them getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, so look, I think they have the talent on the team to get into the playoffs.
I agree.
I mean, again, they got to stay healthy.
Sure.
Things got to go right, but I think they definitely have the talent.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us here on the program. As always, appreciate Fletcher Mackel. Fletcher's with us each and every Tuesday on the radio show. Good to have him on the TV show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program at 6 p.m. right here on WLAE-TV. Also on The Deuce, WLAE-TV 2 at 10 p.m. on Thursday. On Friday, it's 9 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television, 10 o'clock on WLAE, and then back at 2 a.m. on The Deuce on Saturday morning, and then Pelican Sports Television at 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. The WLAE-TV YouTube page is where you can check out all the previous episodes. Also, ericasher.com. You can check out the previous episodes there as well. Also, you can catch me on the radio on 106.1 FM, That is 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. Also, the podcast is available at all the major podcasting platforms now. So you can download that at your leisure, and you can catch all the previous episodes of this program at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to Fletcher Mackel for joining us on the program today. Also to Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Tommy Fairley, Tommy O'Connor, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Eric Asher. See you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks, Fletcher.